Greetings, my friends. I'm Paper Ninja, and I'm glad you're tuning in today. I recently took a poll on what people wanted to see, even though I don't particularly have a large audience. Marisa won out, so that's what we're doing next. Today, we're going to be talking about the other main character for Fantasy Maiden Wars, Marisa Kirisame. Much like her counterpart Reimu, I'm going to be analyzing Marisa in her entirety. Like last time, I'll be giving her a separate letter ranking, with F being the lowest and S being the highest, for 3 different categories. These categories will be availability, skill set, and overall strength. Then, I'll average her out and give her a final rating. I won't go in depth since we're talking about all 3 again, but a brief one with the same definition as last time is probably fine. First, availability. How long a character is able to be used throughout the game. A character who joins early has more opportunities to be used and gain resources to become strong. Next is skill set, which includes a character's spirit list, personal skills, and generic skills that a character might already come with. Some are just better than others, and good spirit lists can either improve or hamper a character. Same applies to both personal and generic skills. Lastly will be overall strength. This will be separated into 3 different categories: attack capability, defensive capability, and support capability. Important to note is that I will be judging Marisa from a lunatic mode, new game perspective. The reason I'm using lunatic as the baseline is because if a character can perform well on lunatic, the highest difficulty possible in Fantasy Maiden Wars, then they can probably do well in all other difficulties with fewer problems. My rating on Reimu doesn't change, regardless of hard or lunatic, since she's just that strong. So from here on, I'm going to be using a lunatic perspective. Now, with that out of the way, let's get started. Much like Reimu, it goes without saying that since Marisa is one of the 2 main characters that you can choose to start with in the beginning of the game, her availability is absolutely insane. Going through more thoroughly per game, let's take a look here. In her own route, she joins as early as chapter 1 out of 77 chapters in the entire game, along with 2 interludes. Of those 77, she is available in the grand total of 74 of them, making her the highest available unit in the entire game on her own route. Within interludes, she's missing from 1 out of 2. On Reimu's route, her availability is a lot more limited, since she won't be in Reimu's unique routes. That means that Marisa will only be available in 60 chapters out of 77, and missing for 1 interlude of the entire game. I say only, but 60 out of 77 is still really good, so don't let that lower number deceive you. Overall, as the other protagonist, it also goes without saying that Marisa is one of the most available characters in the entire game. Even on Reimu's route, she's there for over 50% of the entire game. Once again, I'll be giving 2 separate rankings for availability, since we have 2 routes. For her own route, Marisa gets an S rank, given she's there for over 90% of the entire game. For Reimu's route, Marisa gets an A rank. Marisa's obviously missing in a lot of Reimu's unique maps, and much like the other way around, Marisa can benefit from it. However, her availability is still strong enough to warrant high letter grades. Next up is Marisa's skill set. Coming from my previous analysis on Reimu again, a skill set means a character's spirit list, generic skills, and personal skills that a character comes with. Again, these can either enhance or hinder a character's full potential, though it's important to discuss these. Starting with Marisa's spirits, here's a full list of it. All characters typically end up with 6 spirits. Most can be obtained by leveling, while some might be locked until you reach a certain part of the story. There's no story lock spirit for Marisa, so everything else is just level locked. Unfortunately for Marisa, Gain is not a good start for her on high difficulties. The early game for Marisa is especially notorious for being completely RNG for the first few chapters. Marisa's spirit list is part of why it's so stacked against the player. Gain doesn't sound like a bad thing at first, until you look at Marisa's starting hit rates. While Gain is useful later or once you have more support, Marisa's first few levels are difficult to work with. With no accuracy modifying spirit helping out, unlike Reimu, Marisa definitely struggles early on. Overall, while Gain thematically makes sense for Marisa, it doesn't help her in the early stage on her own route, If you can get through those though to at least level 8, Marisa does eventually get better. Next is Excel at level 7, which does come at a pretty good time for Marisa. As long as you've used Marisa on her own route, she should have this by chapter 3. Perfect for that chapter as it's a rush chapter. On Reimu, you don't even have to worry about leveling Marisa, as Marisa will automatically start at level 7. This is a relatively good skill for Marisa to have. Finally, at level 10, Marisa gets Strike, guaranteeing 100% accuracy for the turn. Accuracy is a luxury in Lunatic, and a way to increase accuracy is always incredibly beneficial. After getting this, Marisa becomes much better, though she doesn't really have much in way of survivability until the next spirit. Alert is gotten at level 12, which is incredibly good for Marisa, as Marisa doesn't have great survival tools outside of specific circumstances. As bosses do spirits, having a way to stop the attack in some way is phenomenal. It does come late into the Scarlet arc, but is a very welcome addition to Marisa's spirit list. At level 23, Marisa gains Valor, which increases Marisa's next attack's damage by 1.5x. This doesn't allow Marisa to land any critical hits and only works for one attack. Nonetheless, it remains a powerful skill that allows for high burst damage. This is one of the earliest levels you can get a damage modifier in terms of spirits, propelling Marisa into high burst damage, though combining it with her other spirits such as Alert and Strike will pretty much drain all of her SP. Nonetheless, use this when you need to blow through a spell card. Lastly, at level 65, which is basically the late game in the Dream Arc, you get Courage, which activates 7 spirits. You get the following: Excel, Strike, Grit, Spirit, Assail, Fury, Valor. So in order, plus 3 movement for the turn, 100% accuracy for the turn, damage dealt to Marisa is reduced to 10 on the next attack, plus 10 power, attacks that aren't post movement can be used in the next attack, ignore damage reductions due to Danmaku's, skills, size, barriers, and support defense, and 1.5 times damage on the next attack. Pretty good spirit, albeit expensive. Nonetheless, you save a lot of SP, around 90 to 100 on average, than if you had activated all of this individually. Overall, Marisa's spirit list early game does not help her for the first 5 levels, which really hurts. Until she hits level 10, Marisa is going to have a tough time hitting enemies reliably, spirit-wise. While you can use the friendship mechanic to help Marisa, it's not enough to make hitting enemies very consistent. Until level 10, you'll need to position Marisa next to all available friends for your best chances of hitting. That also comes with positioning issues, so it's up to you if you want to gamble on that. This is sort of made up with the personal skill later on that you get at level 8, but those first 3 levels really hurt if you're playing Marisa route. Overall, this is a solid spirit list that struggles in the early game, but does fine towards all other parts of the game. Now we come to Marisa's generic skills and personal skills. We'll start with the generic ones first. The first is her generic skill, Magician. This grants Marisa various bonuses at different levels. It increases Marisa's weapon strength by 50 at level 1, and plus 50 for every odd number level. Marisa's accuracy also jumps by plus 5 every even level afterwards. Furthermore, Marisa's laser barrier strength increases by 50 for each level. 50 weapon strength isn't really anything until later in the game, so this is really a mid to late level skill. This skill cannot be removed from her at all, and only 4 other characters have this skill. As a human, Marisa's version of Magician is the weakest, capping at level 7 instead of 9 like Pacholi, Nima, or Byakuran. Marisa gains level in Magician at level 9, 16, 24, 33, 44, and 55 respectively. Regarding the laser barrier strength too, I'll get back to that in a sec. The second skill Marisa comes with is Instinct level 7. This increases her evasion and accuracy rates when she becomes lower in health. Marisa, on average, can take maybe 2 or 3 hits before going down without any help, but Marisa can't reliably dodge anything on Lunatic, so you won't be getting the full benefit of this. Nonetheless, level 7 on this is pretty respectable until you want to remove this later. Lastly is P-Hit. This makes it so that Marisa gains plus 1 power whenever she successfully hits an enemy with her attack. Early on, this is fine to have, as you have no reliable way to gain power at this point. It's worth keeping until you want to remove this later for better skills, once you have the PP to do so. That's all the generic skills that Marisa starts with. Now let's see the personal abilities and skills, since Marisa has quite a few of them. For Marisa's personal abilities, she gets 2 in particular. The first is Magic Barrier, which nullifies laser damage up to 1600. I'll explain the difference between this and an upgraded version later, for conciseness. The other is Orrery's Sun, which is story locked until chapter 46. This gives Marisa a bit of extra weapon power and mobility. It's not a huge buff, but anything to raise her damage for free independently is always nice. Moving to personal skills and starting is Danmaku's Power. Danmaku's Power increases your next attack's MP cost by a certain percentage, as well as its damage by a certain percentage. The amount of time it can be used is reduced as it levels up, and you can't pick if you want to use the weaker version or not. This is a solid skill for bossing. Hard Worker increases your EXP gain. It's pretty much what it says. You can use this if you want to try to push Marisa to certain breakpoints, or need to catch her up quickly. At level 8, you get Magic Thruster, doubling her accuracy, helping fix a lot of Marisa's issues at the cost of MP. The MP costs things a lot, as even 10 MP is the cost of her post-movement attack. Upgrade MP if you're using this. You absolutely need this on some stages with a lot of enemies, or Marisa is going to miss attacks a lot. Even after level 10, where you get the Strike Spirit, which sets accuracy to 100%, using this is a very good substitute since she doesn't have the SP pool to use Strike more than once or twice early on. This is a very good skill that I recommend using. Enhanced Barrier makes it so that Marisa's Barrier, which initially only nullifies 1600 laser damage, a rather niche thing, changes into a barrier that reduces laser damage up to a certain number when you first get the skill. Nullify and Reduce is different, so it's important to note that. Nullify here means that if a laser attack would do more damage than what Marisa's Magic Barrier can take, she will take full damage. With Enhanced Barrier, Nullify changes to Reduce. Here, even if an attack would do more damage than what Marisa's Magic Barrier can take, it will subtract the damage with the barrier strength instead. It's essentially made to help with Marisa's survivability. You'll likely get this around the Mountain of Faith, or the beginning of the Perfect Cherry Blossom arc at the latest if you're somehow actively not using Marisa. It's not an unusable skill, though her other skills help Marisa's issues a lot more, such as accuracy or boss damage unless you intend to have Marisa tank a bit more. Speed Star is a pretty good skill for rushing and low difficulty play, but struggles a lot more in higher difficulty since the amount of Danmaku that enemies have increases. Additionally, the 15% evasion boost by being unfocused is not enough to counteract lunatic Danmaku penalties. It's not a terrible skill by any means, just more situational as there are some chapters that it can be used on, such as chapters 57 and 58 for rushing the targets. Danmaku Power Max is pretty much the ultimate late game burst skill. With certain conditions, you can reach ridiculous numbers, making this the strongest buff in the game for damage, assuming you can meet all the conditions. The rough and not exact calculation formula is as follows, which is this formula here. The absolute limit of damage gained from this personal skill is 200%, so 3 times damage. To reach that, you need exactly 624 MP for 200%. When you use this, regardless of whatever attack you use, even if it uses ammo, it will consume the rest of your MP, so be sure that you have some follow-up to restore Marisa's MP if you plan to continue using her. This is a very strong skill. However, you do have to build around it, and to reach over 600 MP, and assuming you're going to wife point Marisa, you need to give Marisa the full upgrade bonus of 150 MP, as well as the Makai Grimoire, granting another 150 MP. This is the easiest way to reach 600 MP. If you do this, you can get some pretty insane numbers.
お前はもう死んでいる。何?
Overall, Marisa has some really helpful personal skills. If you need the accuracy, go for Magic Thruster. If you need to catch Marisa up, use Hard Worker. Adjust what you need with her on the fly. For example, you won't need Magic Thruster as much later on, since Marisa should have other sources of accuracy to help her as needed. Marisa's Spiritless really sucks early, but it's made up for with her personal skills. There's still that 3-level gap between level 5 and 8, which can feel forever though. If you can work through that, Marisa really shapes up. Given all of these factors, I'm gonna have to give Marisa a firm S rank for a combined skill set. It synergizes well with each other, with some gaps, but can eventually pick itself back up. Her skill set utilizes MP, and all of Marisa's attacks are MP as well. Without MP management, you will have to be careful and manage it until you get Kokuma. This can limit Marisa a bit, But once again, once you reach a certain point, you won't have to worry much about it. Next up is overall strength. Once again, this will be separated into 3 different categories. Being very bad in one category does not mean the character is bad, so long as the other categories are decent to good. It's a different problem at all 3, however. Let's reiterate them, starting with attack capability. Attack capability is looking at all of a character's options, including their combination of spirits, skills, and their attacks. Defensive capability is rated on whether a character has good defensive options to help survive. Like Reimu, we'll also look into Marisa's general stat gains as she levels, as well as her mobility, armor, and HP increases, which are all relevant to her survival. Lastly, supporter capability is whether a character can provide any utility or support for another character, such as increasing someone's power, healing, or resupplying a character. Now, let's get into her attack capabilities. This is the list of symbols that most attacks will have. I won't go over these again, as I talked about this before. This is the same as my Reimu video, so if you need to pause here to double check, feel free to. Like Reimu, Marisa actually has 4 separate attack lists overall, but I've condensed them down to 2 for simplicity's sake. With that in mind, let's look at Marisa's 2 attack lists. The actual ranges of the attacks are pretty solid, but most of the stronger ones don't have post-movement capabilities. Magic missiles are only standard post-movement attack. The weapon strength of her list is respectable early in the game, and needs some upgrades moving forward to help keep up with the enemies. The best move here is Proto-Malice Cannon, which has the highest accuracy and critical rate. It's a cost-effective move against bosses overall, and should not be used against regular enemies, but is pretty strong. Then comes the second half, which looks impressive, but is more on the underwhelming side. First is Stardust Reverie, which runs off of Marisa's horrible melee stat, making it terrible. The matte version of Master Spark is honestly fine, and it's a good attack when you need to deal with several enemies without them retaliating, though you do have to position beforehand. Trichromatic Lotus Butterfly is a combo with Reimu that is awkward to use specifically for Marisa, as she needs to be in one range to use it, whereas a good portion of her moves are farther range. However, Trichromatic Lotus Butterfly is strong without a doubt though. If you look past it, the range cuts off a lot of Marisa's other finishing options. Finally, there's Master Spark, which is probably one of Marisa's most underwhelming moves. While the weapon strength looks high, there's a lot of other factors that unironically reduce its impact. First, the 4 to 8 range might look like a boon, but being farther away from an opponent actually reduces your damage by 3% for every tile away from them. 4 range also means that you're farther away from your allies on average. When attacking a boss, you're normally going to surround them to unload attacks, but 4 range is far enough that you might be out of range from not only support defenders, like Vittori or Rumia, but also out of range of friendship bonuses. For 70 MP alone, where Marisa's maximum MP won't break past 270 by default, this is a rather poor trade. After chapter 39, Marisa gets a permanent form upgrade, which changes her attack list mostly for the better. The most important change is the upgrade in her base weapon power in her attacks. All of her attacks now run off the range stat, rather than some using her awful melee one. The big change is in the latter half of the attack list, which really only has 2. Blazing Star and True Trichromatic Lotus Butterfly. The upgraded Stardust Reverie, Blazing Star, now runs off the range stat, making it a very effective new finisher instead of Final Spark. While it might be 300 weapon power weaker, the general positioning and range of 1-2 makes it easy to be near allies more often instead of Final Spark, though there are situations where the latter is better. Important to note is that you do lose the map version of Master Spark in Marisa's new form, so pick which one you need per map basis. True Trichromatic Lotus Butterfly is also a combo move that is only available in the last chapter, so you're not going to have a lot of time to play with it. However, it is the strongest combo move in the entire game. Summing everything up, the upgraded form's attacks fixes pretty much all of Marisa's issues, with the exception of losing the map W. Although she doesn't have a lot of good post-range options, Marisa's ranges are quite solid, and her post-range bread and butter attack, Magic Missile and Magic Napalm, are no exception. Those 2 attacks help make player phase attacks much more bearable. Lastly, Marisa is the earliest character to get Valor at level 23, which in conjunction with her personal skill and good weapon strength, lends well to high burst damage, when you need to get through a spell card quickly. Given everything, I'm going to give Marisa an S rank for attack capability. Her attack boost complements well with her spirits and personal skills, which do a ton of burst damage as needed for bossing, or increase her accuracy for the turn, as long as you can protect her. Pick which form you like depending on the map, and Marisa will do a ton of damage if you can keep her alive. Next is Marisa's defensive capabilities. Looking at the stat growth sheet, Marisa uses the range/evasion stat growth type, which gives her 1.9 evasion per level, the highest in the game. Despite her having the highest evasion growth though, it's never enough to consistently dodge, so I wouldn't count on it. A defense growth of 0.7 also means not being able to take more than 2 to 3 hits on average before dying without help. Moving on to parameter upgrades, Marisa's base HP ends on the higher end, and a good amount of MP for attacks. While her starting armor is higher than Reimu's, it doesn't really help her survive much more. 2 to 3 attacks, and Marisa will still go down. While Marisa is able to use Alert to consistently dodge attacks, it drains her SP pretty quickly, so she can't frontline anything without help. While you can make the argument that nobody can frontline all that well in Lunatic without much help, being able to only take 2 to 3 hits from random enemies, and maybe even only 1 from bosses, pretty much means needing to use Alert consistently against bosses. Otherwise, Marisa risks dying, especially when needing to use her other spirits, like Strike. With no other skills to help her, I'm going to give Marisa a B rank. Alert is a very good skill to have, and can keep her alive against bosses. Her average evasion isn't enough to constantly dodge, so frontlining her isn't a great idea without help. But she can keep herself alive against bosses, and that's the important part, since even staying alive can be a major roadblock in a run. Finally, we have supported capability. As for Marisa's supported capability, there is none. Marisa is pretty much zero utility. She's not durable enough to defend others, she can't heal, resupply, provide buffs, and the list goes on about any utility she can't provide. By that standard, I have no choice but to give her an F rank in utility. Like Reimu, Marisa is an incredibly good unit that you should be utilizing as a protagonist. She's the highest available unit in the game outside of Reimu. She has strong attacks, so long as you put some investment into her. She's got Alert, which can keep Marisa alive more so than other characters, and that's sometimes all you need from a character. The lower rank in her defense and support capability doesn't detract from Marisa much, as her offensive capabilities more than makes up for it. As for Marisa's final rating, factoring in that Marisa is a purely offensive unit, I'll be giving her an S rank. Keep in mind that this is for New Game only and not for New Game Plus. Marisa is the protagonist of her own route, though hers is generally considered harder than Reimu's. Her base form is weaker than Reimu's overall, since she has no accuracy modifiers until level 8 and 10. Keeping her alive is tough without help until level 12. You should expect to reset a few times to manipulate some of the RNG. Making up for it is the overall burst damage from Marisa. Reimu gets Zeal, her double turn, pretty late at chapter 50, while Marisa gets Valor at level 23. Just like Canon, Marisa is someone who needs some work to be strong. You need to defend her and give her some kills before she can really start taking off. This can be a hassle on Lunatic, given the accuracy woes and even sometimes positioning issues. However, if you do so, you won't be disappointed with this ordinary human magician. Thanks for tuning in, and have a wonderful day.